Hello everybody, welcome to Tree Talk, another episode of Tree Talk in the Treehouse, and with me today is Mr. Tim Aves.
Hello.
Hello Tim. Musician, ambassador of the British blues scene, would you say?
Maybe, yeah.
I think so, yeah, you've done a lot for them. Ex-broadcaster.
Yep.
Promoter.
Yep.
And a writer.
Yep.
Yeah. Does that about sum you up? Do you think?
And sort of nascent studio owner.
Oh yes, yeah. I'll want to come to that sort of probably later on. But that kind of really, in a nutshell, sums you up all the things you do.
Yeah.
Or have done.
Yeah.
So, and I've known you for a few years, Tim.
Just a few, yeah.
Because the husband's in one of your bands, Automatic Slim. So we've crossed paths at a lot of gigs,
Absolutely.
festivals over the years, which has been great. So that's kind of, something we've got in common, the music. But also being a writer myself, I'm interested in your writing journey. I know you're retired now, aren't you?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure that you would actually call the sort of aspect of journalism that I was involved in writing particularly. I spent a lot of the time actually as a sub-editor.
Did you?
Which is sort of like editing other people's words, or as I rather cynically used to say, translating other people's words into English. Because most journalists can't write, frankly.
Right, okay.
But I did attempt to write a novel a few years ago.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's sort of stalled, and I've not touched it for a number of years.
Right.
Shall we say? And then when I actually went back and reread it a couple of years ago, I was fairly horrified at how bad it was. So I'm not sure that I'm going to be picking that particular thread up again.
Right. Okay. So tell me about your writing journey. How did it all start?
Well, at school, really, I suppose, like most of us. I've always had a faculty for language, I suppose you could say, and a love for language, really. I love particularly the English language and the subtleties and the nuances of it, and how there are so many different ways of expressing things. And I think, our language in general is becoming very impoverished these days, partly by American influences, but just by the sort of encroachment of jargon, really. Yeah. Where
text speak.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm a very ardent defender of the language in all its fullness, shall we say. Okay.
So that did journalism sort of satisfy your love for the English language to a certain extent?
It gave me an opportunity to write, although it's one of these classic things with journalism, as with a lot of other jobs, where as you progress into your career, and if you're good at it, you end up doing less of the thing that you're good at than you did when you started, because you go into more sort of managerial roles, or you go into things that involve, like I was, sort of actually working on other people's raw material and shaping it and honing it, rather than actually necessarily being creative in your own right.
Yeah.
Which, as I say, I think there's a lot of jobs that are like that, really, where as I say, if you're good at something, they take you away from it and make you a manager. Yeah. That's one of the great things about music, of course, that if you're good at it, you tend to stay with the music rather than move away from it. But I really ought to write more than I do, but I have quite an active online life. I post a lot on Facebook, particularly.
I've seen,
and I email with friends all over the world quite a lot. So I do find
And you've written quite a few songs.
Yeah.
You know?
I couldn't enumerate how many, but it's not as many as a lot of people. But
so that's really switching from that foundation of the journalistic sort of hat to the really creative and intuitive hat of singer-songwriter.
This is a very creative and intuitive hat, this one.
Is it? I'll borrow that off you.
The band matches a shirt, a stage shirt.
Oh, okay. I think I've seen you wear it.
This is Kay's handiwork.
Yeah.
But, anyway, that's another story.
Yeah.
Yes, it's interesting, songwriting. I've always been good with words, with songs.
Yeah.
And I think I've, in some ways, often been too good, because I get very hung up in sort of intricate internal rhymes and things, which are actually quite hard to sing, and which tend to sort of undermine the song sometimes. Whereas if you listen to great songs and classic songs, the simplicity is often the thing that gets you.
The subtlety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a mistake that a lot of people that have a faculty with words or a facility with words, actually they make that mistake and do get caught up in themselves.
Yeah.
But having said that, I've written quite a few songs that I'm very proud of.
Okay.
And having sort of been a bit blocked in recent years, that's a terribly pretentious word, isn't it? Oh, darling, I'm blocked.
Writer's block!
For a long, long time, actually. I've actually started writing songs again in the past year.
Good. That's good to hear.
And the thing that's been the impetus for it, funnily enough, is technology. I bought an iPad with GarageBand on, which is a sort of music production app.
Okay.
And it comes free with it. You pay 350 quid for an iPad, and it does all the iPad-y things. But it's got this amazing program that you can record with. It does the drums, it does all that stuff. And I just started playing around with it because it looked like fun. And I ended up thinking, well, hang on a minute, I can use this. And something about it actually got me writing songs again. And this, in the last year since I've had it, really, I suppose, I've probably written 4 or 5 new songs, which I'm by and large pretty happy with.
Okay.
And the other thing I've been doing is revisiting a lot of my old songs, which I never actually got to put into a band context or record. And in a lot of ways, often sort of transporting them into a slightly different genre. Yeah. And it's been a really amazing learning experience. I've had so much fun, and since I have a lot more time these days, that is the other thing. I've been able to do it, but it's great because it's like it's opened a whole new door to creativity.
Yeah, that's wonderful, isn't it? Now, talking about stories and songs, can I take you back a few years to Automatic Slim days?
Yep.
Because Ian was saying to me, you must get Tim to tell you the story of going through on Amber.
Oh Lord! Yeah. I wondered.
So, can you talk about that? Can you explain about that? Tell us a story.
Which of the plethora of road stories that Ian and I have accumulated over the years,
Tim.
which one of those you were going to ask me about? But that was years and years ago. That was the actual incident. Came before we actually had the band together. It was back in the days when the old 06 in Southend.
Oh, I remember that.
Used to have a jam on a Monday night called the Musicians Workshop, and I used to go down there very occasionally. I mean, I wasn't really a terribly accomplished or experienced musician, and I always felt a bit out of my depth going down there, but I used to go down there occasionally, and driving through Rayleigh to get there, where there's this notorious one-way system with lots of cameras and, well, not cameras, traffic lights and things. Yeah. And I was completely lost, and I just drove through a red light, really, and that was the song, really, came from this idea of going through on Amber. Yeah. Which I probably wasn't. I was probably going like that, looking where the hell I was. But so that was the sort of basis of that, or the thing that sparked it, and then it sort of developed into the song itself. It's the way I often write songs, and I think most people do, where you start off with a kernel of an idea, and then the song grows outwards from it. So if the idea is that you start off with it being about driving somewhere and doing something stupid or wrong or whatever, and then you transport it into maybe a situation where you're in a relationship and you misread the signs and you take something too far.
Okay, so you're using metaphor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Which of course is a very current thing at the
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
And, you know, you could argue that chap that's been shamed on the social media this week was going through on Amber or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not going to comment on the rights or wrongs of it because I'm not sure I understand them, but it's funny the way you can transfer something stupid like driving through a red light because you're lost into a completely different situation.
Yeah. But most songs, I don't know, I find with my songwriting that I tend to write in metaphor, just kind of naturally almost. Do you?
I tend to start with a fairly down-to-earth practical proposition. It's usually something that's occurred to me, and then expand it. And it tends to sort of go that way. I mean, the most recent song I've written is a song called The River, which is about, well, I suppose inspired by the river in Burnham, which I love, and I walk most days by the river, and about the notion that you can go to the river and you take all your troubles and your worries there, and somehow being sort of there and immersed in the atmosphere of it takes them away. Yeah. And so, that's a fairly straightforward song that goes along on one track, if you like. But it's quite nice to be able to sort of use those wonderful words to actually say the same thing several ways and bring it round on itself so that it actually works. So with songwriting, have you done that with all the bands that you've been in? Because I've got down here the main bands really that you've been involved with that people know you for are Automatic Slim, the Rockin' Armadillos and Wolfpack. Yeah. So have you written for your own songs for all of those bands? Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Automatic Slim had this huge Dr. Feelgood influence, and I think a lot of the time in that band I was probably channeling, in terms of songwriting, the sort of people that were writing songs for Dr. Feelgood, whether it was Wilko Johnson or people like Larry Wallace from the Pink Fairies or whatever, Nick Lowe. So a lot of the songs from that, I suppose I'd got Lee Brillo's voice in my head, and that very spiky sort of aggressive. Did you know band. Lee Brillo? Were you friends with him? I was fortunate enough. Lee had been my hero from the age of about 16. Yeah. I saw Dr. Feelgood on a programme called The Geordie Scene, which was on at tea time. Yeah. When I came home from school, and they were just this amazing band. And I went to school the next day, and all my mates had seen it, and everyone was talking about this incredible band that had been on there that they'd seen nothing like. You can actually, if you Google it, it's on YouTube. This thing. Yeah. And it turned out that Friday they were playing at our local venue, which was Cambridge Corn Exchange, because I grew up in Cambridgeshire, and I went and was just completely knocked sideways by this band. Decided that, basically I wanted to do that. Went out and bought a mouth organ, which of course I bought entirely the wrong sort, and it took me ages to discover why this thing that I'd stuck in my mouth sounded in no way like the noise that Lee Brillo made. But eventually I got the hang of it, and the other thing that got me involved in music was the punk thing, really. I was at college in Harlow in 1976, which was just when it was all coming up through, and I was actually on a journalism course with a chap called Adrian O'Dolan, who was better known as Adrian Thrills. He had a fanzine called 48 Thrills, and was very close to the Clash and various people. I remember him bringing in a white label pressing of The Damned's New Rose, which is sort of generally considered to be the first punk single, and playing that to us obviously before it was released and things like that. And I really got into the energy side of punk, but also I love punk. Yeah, but also the idea that you didn't have to be a great musician to be in a band and go out and do it. And
get away with murder, couldn't they, after those bands?
And for thousands of people like me, I suppose, who pratted about in their bedrooms with a tennis racket pretending to play guitar, that actually you could go and do something about it. So NME the magazine used to run these adverts in the back for musicians. They were actually actively trying to encourage people to do it. So they had free adverts.
Yeah.
And so I put an advert in there and to form a punk band, and ended up, and I was going to be a singer, and we ended up with 3 singers. So one of us decided to learn guitar, one of us decided to learn bass, and I ended up as the bass player.
Yeah.
And so I started playing bass guitar, and I was always a pretty terrible bass player, to be honest. And I still am, although I understand a little bit more about the mechanics of it now. And so I played bass in bands and sang in bands for a good while. That's how I first met Ian. We actually had a rehearsal band in Burnham, that would have been about 1980, I suppose, for a while. Mm-hmm. And then I went off and I sort of fronted a band singing and playing bass that wasn't terribly good, because actually singing and playing bass is one of the hardest things in the world. I think I've got endless respect for people that can do both well at the same time. Mm.
Like Paul McCartney?
Well, yeah, why not?
Yeah, anyone can do it. Yeah,
whether Paul McCartney can sing still is a bit debatable. His voice is on the way out, but there, I mean, that's another story. But so I sort of ended up deciding that maybe I was a singer rather than a bass player. Yeah, and that was the point at which we sort of decided to get this rhythm and blues band together, or I did, and I advertised for a bass player, a drummer and a guitarist, and I got a bass player and a drummer, and we had an audition set up, and I didn't have a guitarist, so I asked Ian if he'd like to just come along and play so we could sort of try and get it off the ground. And the bass player was Howard.
Yeah.
And the drummer was a chap called Chris Love. In fact, to just wind back a bit, Chris Love, the drummer, was the guy who replied to the ad, and I said, I don't suppose you know any bass players, do you? And he said, well, yeah, I do actually. I've got this guy's number. I've never met him. He's probably a bit of an idiot, but we'll try. So I phoned Howard, who said, I can't talk to you right now, I'm in the middle of my dinner, and put the phone down. Bless him. But I did persevere, and as I say, me, Howard, Ian and Chris had a rehearsal, and it just sort of sparked up and went pretty well. And so we carried on. Within a month we played our first gig, and I mean, it was a very long time that Ian used to joke about the fact that he still hadn't got the job in the band. He was just helping us out.
Right, yeah.
But 17 years and 3,000 odd gigs later.
Yeah. And you're still revisiting.
Well, that is the thing, you know.
You're
I mean,
still going, aren't you?
1999, when we packed it in, it was like, it was an idea whose time had come and gone, really, that sort of sparky rhythm and blues thing. And the people that had come to see us over the years and whatever had then reached a stage in their lives where they'd got families and responsibilities, so they weren't going out to see bands anymore. So our audience had sort of grown up, really, I suppose, which was interesting. And we just sort of felt that the interest wasn't there anymore, and I'd sort of moved on to other music and sort of got more into, like, I suppose more straightforward, straight blues. And I'd got
and that's where the Armadillos came in.
And that was where, I had the Armadillos on the go at that stage.
And wasn't your son Owen in the Armadillos?
My
now tell us about Owen.
Well, Owen is just the most amazing musician. He started playing guitar when he was 10. I'm to blame, I suppose, for both him and his brother Rod.
It's all your fault.
Who plays bass, getting into it. But he just picked it up and ran with it, really. I now joke that I taught him everything he knows. I mean, I didn't. But I put a guitar in his hand when he was 10 and sort of introduced him to people who could teach. And by the time he was 12, he was going to jams with me, and his brother Rob was playing bass, because Owen's little band needed a bass player, and we used to, a couple of nights a week, I'd say, oh, don't worry about your homework, and we'd go out to jams and play. We used to go to the old Dr. Feelgood bar on Canvey, which was a great place. On a Monday night they had a jam, and Owen and Rob would go down there and play with the big figure, Dr. Feelgood's drummer, and all these people.
But he's not over here anymore, is he, Owen?
So Owen played in the Armadillos with us until about 1997, by which time 2007, by which time he'd been in a variety of bands. He was a session player in London, and he got into this rock band called Purple Melon. Oh yeah, it's very easy to confuse that. Who had a big management deal and a lot of money behind them, and ended up going off to Los Angeles to seek their fortune. And they lasted for a while out there, and then jacked it in. By which time Owen had met his wife and decided to settle in Los Angeles, where he still is, and he's a session player. He makes a living playing gigs and playing sessions all over America. One of his regular gigs is with a female bass player called Tal Wilkenfeld, who was Jeff Beck's bass player for a long time, and he's the regular guitar player in her band. They did 6 weeks on the road supporting the Who in huge football stadiums across America the year before last.
But as you say, it's wonderful to be making a living out of what you really
and
love
he does
doing,
all sorts
isn't
of things. He plays with an artist called Grizz, who is a sort of hip-hop artist who nobody's ever heard of here, but he's enormous out there. He plays these football stadiums. I'll tell you where they played recently, the Red Rock Stadium in Colorado, where U2 recorded a live album and all sorts of things. I mean, it's interesting that in America you can be huge and nobody's heard of you outside of America.
That's right.
But anyway, that's Owen. He's managed to forge a life out of it, really, which is great.
That's brilliant. So if we can round up the music, the bands that you've been in with the Wolfpack now. Yeah. So the Armadillos were in the middle. You were sandwiched. Yeah,
the Armadillos sort of came to a conclusion in about 2007, 8. Yeah. I mean, I've sort of discovered this thing where bands seem to have a sort of 7-year cycle. Where every 7 years it seems like something happens, more or less. It's certainly been the case with a lot of the bands I've been in. I mean, particularly I'll
have to watch out for that.
Well, the Armadillos we had 7 years with Alex Merkin on keyboards. And then Alex decided he wanted to leave, so we got another Alex on guitar. So we had 2 guitarists, and after 7 years, the band sort of ground to a halt. And at this time, Rob, our bass player, my stepson, was doing the odd dep gig with a band called Hokey Joint, who were from Colchester and were doing quite well and playing a lot in Europe and whatever. And their bass player, Fergie, had a really terrible car accident, broke his neck, and his arm was paralysed.
Yes, I do remember that.
And Rob ended up playing bass for them, and got really friendly with Joel Fisk, who's their guitar player. And so did I. So we started off. Well, I got asked to support Matt Schofield at a gig in Southend, and I decided rather than doing it solo or as a duo, I'd put a band together. So we did this. We played one gig as Tim Aves and Friends, which I always think it's a tremendous joke because I have no friends, you know. But I'm glad to say that's not
I don't think that's true, Tim.
But anyway, and it went so well, we decided to do the odd gig. And so a couple of months later, we started going out regularly as Tim Aves and Wolfpack, that being a nod in the direction of Howlin' Wolf, who is my favourite blues singer and my biggest influence, I think, really. And so we cover quite a lot of Howlin' Wolf material, although we tend to do it in our own way. And we also play the odd thing by other bands, and gradually been writing songs for it, which brings us back to the songwriting thing again. And it's very interesting writing songs for different bands, because you're always writing for different capabilities and having a different sound in your head. With the Armadillos, when we had Alex on keyboards, that was always something that you could sort of factor into the equation.
Yeah.
With this band, one of the things about Wolfpack is that I wanted to play a lot more guitar. Because I'm a pretty terrible guitar player, but I love playing guitar, and that was one of the pretexts for the band. So that was something that I was trying to factor into it as well, and also trying to stay within bounds. It's one of the hardest things I find about writing for a genre such as blues, if you like, that you can write stuff and you think, well, you know, is that outside the boundaries? Is that still a blues song? And
do you care about that though? Do you?
I think to a certain extent you have to, because when you produce a body of work, it has to sound like a body of work rather than something that's very diverse. I mean, if you take a band like Queen, for instance, I mean, Queen are a rock band, but you listen to the songs that they've written over the years and it's all over the place, and there's a lot of pastiche and whatever. But
that was their kind of...
Well, yeah. But
that was their thing, that's what symbolised their originality, wasn't it, really? What I'm saying their diversity.
It's a difficult thing, and it's a real challenge, and a very fulfilling challenge in a way, to write songs that are definitely within a genre, but are sufficiently different, that aren't just three chords and whatever, and that have lyrics that are relevant and whatever. And it's a great discipline, and it's also a very frustrating discipline. And I would say my quality control is a lot higher, shall we say, than some other people. I mean, you hear of people that boast that they've got 900 songs under their belts or whatever. And you actually listen to it, and they've probably written 20 or 30 good songs. But they don't, I think about...
quantity rather than quality. Out of quantity does come quality. What
I throw out is... And also because having spent a long time as a broadcaster and getting loads and loads of music thrown at me, you get to hear, frankly, how mediocre the vast majority of it is. So it makes you very wary about falling into that trap.
Now, you mentioned being a broadcaster there, so I think, doesn't this come from your love of and your connection with so many musicians over the years, and wanting to promote others? And there we have the broadcaster and Tim Aves the promoter.
I think it's more that I love music. I'm passionate about music in a way that I'm passionate about not many other things, and I love expressing myself, as you probably gathered. I love talking.
I know. Makes my job a lot easier.
Poor old Sheena's not getting a word in edgeways here.
No, but it's not about me, Tim. It's about you.
And broadcasting is a way of extending that passion. It's a way of sharing your passion, so that it's a bit like that thing where you buy a new album and you tell all your friends, I've got this great new album.
You want to share it.
And to do a radio show, it's the opportunity to be able to do that every week to a lot of people.
To more people,
And that was always the joy of it for me. One of the reasons why I stopped doing it, if I'm honest, is the fact that it's a lot harder now to actually just go on the air and play the music that you love to play and say, listen to this is great. Because there's a real industry at a very low level around promoting bands and their product online. And so, I mean, I was broadcasting 2 hours a week on what's basically, let's face it, a community station, but one which had a good reach online, and I was getting very good listenership worldwide online. And
that's great.
I was nominated for Broadcaster of the Year in the British Blues Awards 4 times, I think, or 5 times.
That's really good.
And never won it, but I was nominated, which meant sort of being shortlisted for among sort of 3 or 4 people. But the more it became like a small industry, if you like, you would get deluged with music. And so typically I was getting probably 12 albums a week.
Really?
Yeah. Just CDs coming through the post and stuff coming in electronically. And in the end, it became almost a tyranny, really, because you know that there's no way you're going to actually be able to give any of this a fair hearing. What you end up doing is thinking, I listen to the first 30 seconds of that, yeah, actually that sounds all right. Yeah, I'll have that, and whatever. And from that, you then try and construct a show. Whereas when I started doing it, I was playing a lot more music from my own collection, and it was music that I genuinely loved and was happy to share. It ended up with me feeling that I couldn't do that, because all the time you've got all this pressure to play new music and stuff coming in and people emailing you and badgering you and saying, you've got to play it this week.
Yeah, so you're obligated.
And that's one of the things that one of the reasons why I walked away from it in the end.
Okay. But to cross-section now into promotion, you've promoted quite a lot of events and festivals over the years, haven't you? And haven't you got something in the bubbling at the moment?
Yeah, well, I used to be involved with something called Riverfest, which was a sort of community arts festival in Burnham. We ran that for, about 14 years.
That was a great festival,
and
wasn't it?
It was a free festival, and we tried, it used to be a weekend on the outdoor festival in Burnham, which was free, and we tried to expand it out into a month of arts events, broader, and sort of all sorts of things. And it was successful, but it was always limited by the fact that it was in Burnham and the fact that it had to be publicly funded to a certain extent, funded by sponsorship, because we decided to keep it free. And as public funding contracted, we found it very hard to sustain.
Restricting,
and so that sort of ground to a halt. As I say, after 14 years, maybe it's the 7-year cycle again. I don't know.
Wow.
But it was a lot of fun, and I made a lot of good friends doing that. And they're people that I still work with a lot.
And so that helps you now with what you're promoting. What are you promoting now? Haven't you bought something?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I last sort of January time, or actually started last December. The Parlour Cafe in Burnham,
right?
Or Creeksea, we should say, just outside Burnham, is a great place, and I go there a lot and drink their lovely coffee and whatever. And they also have events there. They have a summer music event on a very sort of low-key basis. And I kept looking at this place and thinking, this has got so much potential to do something a bit bigger and a bit more interesting. And then my partner was trading at a craft fair they have there at just before Christmas. In the barn they've got there. And I thought, well, this would make a great venue. So I sort of pondered on it for about a month or so, and in January I thought, well, let's do this. So we had a meeting and we decided to go ahead with it. So that was Blues at the Barns. There's only one barn. Well, there's the barn where we have it, and then there's these barn conversions which are holiday homes, which are lovely.
Right,
and I decided from the outset that the brief would be acoustic blues, or blues that wasn't, not the sort of noisy rocky blues really, but something that was sort of more low-key, more subtle really, sort of ranging across to folk, Americana and whatever. The idea being that it would be a sort of festival where you don't get your ears battered too much. I had this idea around 3 bands that I knew were good friends of each other and were good friends, the Spike Drivers, Guy Tortora's band and Giles Headley's band, and the idea of getting these 3 bands together and ending up with them all on stage at the end for a jam, which is what happened. And it was just very successful, more so than I'd anticipated. The venue were really happy with it.
And this was last year?
This was last year.
So this was your first gig there last year?
I was a bit anxious, and I think probably the people who own the venue were, because they'd not done anything quite like that, that it was going to work and there weren't going to be problems. But by the time we went there on the Monday to clear up, they was already talking about, well, next year we'll do this and that. And so I thought,
that's good. That's what you want to hear, isn't it?
And we had great feedback from it. So
you're doing another one?
Well, yeah. I mean,
when is it?
Well, the first one, we conceived it in January and put it on in May. This year we've had a whole year to do it. It's on Sunday, May.
Your poster.
Sunday, May the 6th.
Sunday, May the 6th.
There we are.
Blues at the Barns.
Yeah.
Have you got a website online or anything that people can find out more about it?
Yeah.
Can they book tickets?
Yep. It's a bit of a mouthful, the website, so I won't mention it. But if you Google Blues at the Barns, plural, I think it comes up. It may come up as top result or maybe second result. And well,
I can put that in the links underneath the video. Definitely put that in the links.
And it's going to be bigger this year. We run 2 stages, one in the garden for duos and solo acts, one in the main barn.
Yeah.
Headlining.
We're going to try and make it.
Great, it'll be good to see. Headlining, we've got a band called Lavender Rogue.
Oh, yes.
Mentioned earlier on, who won the British Blues Challenge this year, UK Blues Challenge. And are actually, as we speak, in Memphis, Tennessee, competing, representing the UK in the International Blues Challenge.
Great.
And then in March, they're off to a place called Hell.
Oh.
In Norway for the European Blues Challenge as well. I really wanted to go just so I could say I've been to hell and back. And they're headlining, and they're perfect really, because they sort of straddle the blues and the sort of folk Americana world with their music, and they're also very entertaining. We've got a great Western swing band fronted by a guy called Steve Summers, who used to live in Burnham years ago, who many people in Burnham will remember as a very talented guy, professional musician. He lived in France for many years. He's just come back with his family. And his son, Ben, who is 38 as well, plays double bass with the band. So that's that. We've got an amazing band from Norfolk called the Vagaband, who again are sort of blues meets folk meets jazz.
Yeah.
We've got Dale Storr, who's an amazing New Orleans pianist who's coming down from Sheffield.
So this is over 2 days, did you say?
This is all over one day.
Over one day?
This is Sunday, May the 6th.
May the 6th.
Yeah, although we are hoping to promote some blues gigs in the town in Burnham on the Saturday as well. And we're calling it The Fringe.
Oh, nice one.
Yeah.
And also, what's your current project, as well as sort of all your preparing for all this?
Yeah, well,
what else are you?
We're building a recording studio.
Oh, that's great news.
It is, yeah. I mean, in this
Who's
area.
we?
Oh, myself and Peter Crisp, who is
Pete.
an old friend from Burnham Festival days. He was one of my colleagues on the committee.
Yeah.
And he's a brilliant recording engineer.
Yes.
He ran the studio, Saint Studio, at the school for a long time, until the school decided they didn't want a studio there last year. And we just decided to branch out. We're building the studio in some farm buildings on a farm out in the marshes near Southminster.
Yeah.
And I reckon we're going to be at least partly open by just after Easter, and then the rest of it after that. So we'll certainly be doing some stuff there from the outset, and then we've got to do some more work on our live room where the bands will play. But in the meantime, we're hoping to offer various packages. Pete does location recording and live recording, which we'll then be able to take back there and mix. And also, because Pete has a relationship with the people that run Radio Caroline, with the ship out in the estuary, the Ross Revenge, it looks as if we're going to be able to invite bands to go out and spend 2 or 3 days on the Ross Revenge, to live there and record, and then take it back to our studio to mix, which is a great opportunity. We've had quite a lot of interest in that already. We can't actually do it at the moment because there's a few technicalities to sew up.
Well, if you need anybody to film,
well, that's worth knowing.
Absolutely. Mark.
So we're very excited.
Really
about
good
that.
at doing music videos.
I've got to learn how to use all the equipment, which is a bit of a learning curve.
But it's great for the the community, isn't it? The musicians, local musicians.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, we're actually building it to a very high standard.
Yeah, so it won't just be local musicians.
We're hoping to attract business from production companies and publishing companies and whatever, because frankly, you know what musicians are like. We're all broke, and frankly, most bands record every 2-3 years, maybe.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get rich recording local bands, such as they are, on a 2 or 3 year basis. So you've really got to sort of reach out,
maximise your
that's right. Yeah.
Optimise your
but I mean, Peter's done great work in the past. I mean, I couldn't tell you how many commercial albums have been produced from the studio that he had in Burnham.
Well, he produced our first album.
Yeah,
Ian and mine.
He's done
great.
2 or 3 albums of mine.
Yeah.
And it hopefully, with a bit of luck and a fair wind and whatever.
Sounds like a great partnership, you and Pete.
Oh yeah, he's a very good friend, and the thing is, there's just some people that you can work with, and it's effortless. And me and Pete are like that. Really, it's great.
It's good. Well, I wish you all the luck with that, Tim.
Thank you.
That new venture and your continuing musical ventures, promotions, especially with the
I hope you get a new band going
anywhere else
as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, where can people find you? Where can people contact you?
Well, I'm on Facebook. I'm all over Facebook.
All over Facebook like a rash.
Search for Tim Aves. You'll see
Tim
the
Aves.
spelling from this video, no doubt.
Yeah.
Well, that'll do really. You'll find me on Facebook. Or if you Google me, there's quite a lot on
Yeah,
there,
I did Google you actually. You are on Google as well. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Tim, for coming and having a chat with me in the Treehouse. It's been really nice.
It's been a pleasure.
Sort of listening to, you get a glimpse of the man behind the mask.
Well, yeah maybe.
Or the many masks.
Masks, and it's me talking about my favourite subject. Me!
Yeah.
Terrible admission.
Anyway, good luck with all your ventures.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us today. And
thank you.
Ta-ta for now, everybody. Bye.
Bye.